What's a happening YouTube? This is John, nerding out with cards, and I'm doing a video that I'm super excited to do because I had a card come in today, and I'm finally getting to talk about my Cardinals Hall of Fame and Museum collection. See, I got Cardinal. This is a stadium giveaway from last year. Really kind of silly. I won't keep it on, be distracting, but I just had to be dumb here at the beginning. But no, so recently the Cardinals announced who the 2025 inductees are going to be this year. So came a little bit earlier than I had expected. But here we are. So one of the things is, like Team Hall of Fames, right? You've heard me talk about valuing Team Halls of Fames. And my earliest memory of that was back in, it was 2012, I believe. I was stationed in Dubuque, Iowa on a river tender there. And I was stationed with a guy, big time Astros fan. And I seem to remember we were talking about it because I was like, man, teams should just have their own Halls of Fame. Screw the National Hall of Fame. Calm down from that statement. But what had happened at that time was you had Craig Biggio and you had Jeff Bagwell both up for election, right? And so we know that neither one of them were first ballot Hall of Famers. There is some question about Bagwell. I'm not getting into that. But what was unfortunate, so neither one of them got into that year. And not only that, but later on, they did not go in together. Right? I grew up Cardinals fan, remember when the Astros were in the same division as the Cardinals? And, we were rivals there for a good bit. So I didn't like the players when they were playing because, well, they were really good at doing things against my team that I didn't want them doing. And, but at the same time, they retire, you can appreciate their careers. And I thought it was unfortunate that they did not go in then and they did not go in together, right? And so that's kind of like the genesis of like, screw that, and, teams should have their own Halls of Fame. And I know that teams do, right? You look around, there's a debate, Dale Murphy should be in the Hall of Fame. Dale Murphy should be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm not disagreeing with that, but, the Braves have their own Hall of Fame and he's in it, right? The Royals have their own Hall of Fame that I know of. The Reds have their own Hall of Fame that I know of. And you could probably just kind of go on and on and on and on, right? So does like your team have its own Hall of Fame in which great players for that franchise can be recognized. Their careers are immortalized. Their careers, are celebrated by the franchise, the fans, the cities in which they played, right? Because, they're not going to get validation from some sports writer. They're not going to get validation from the era's veterans committees, which is made up of, in some cases, gatekeeping players. Like, I think Johnny Bench is a gatekeeping player, right? I remember Ted Simmons was up for a vote and he missed it. And Johnny Bench had all these great things to say, but then didn't vote for him. Whatever, and so screw that. And then of course we got all the steroid stuff, like should they or shouldn't they get in? There's never been like a referendum on that, and the voters are kind of wishy-washy where the players just stay on the ballots forever. But the Giants have their own Hall of Fame and Barry Bonds is in it. So anyway, like that was kind of like the thing. And I'll get to showing some cards. Sorry guys, but 2014, the Cardinals created the Cardinals Hall of Fame and Museum. All the inaugural inductees were players, executives, and things like that that were already in the Hall of Fame, had their number retired by the Cardinals. There was a fan vote, there was a Red Ribbon Committee, and they were all a part of that inaugural class. But as far as my card collection goes, it was one of the times that Ken Boyer was up for the Veterans Eras Committees, whatever it was called at the time. And I thought he had a really good chance to get in. We all know that one, he didn't get in, and honestly, I don't think he was even close. I know he was not close this last time. I honestly don't think he's going to get in. You know, we keep talking about should be in, I think he'll get in, but now there's limits on how many times they can appear on the ballot. Don't care, because he's in our Hall of Fame, right? So Ken Boyer was like the spark for starting this card collection. And I don't remember the specific year, but anyway, it was one of the years that he got passed over again. And I was just like, you know, screw the National Hall of Fame. I kind of got back to that. But I was like, you know, Ken Boyer is never going to get in, but he's in our Hall of Fame. And not only that, but like, that's a Hall of Fame that I can go to, like, quite easy. Like going to Cooperstown, like, that's difficult. So then what I did was, I picked up this card. I was like, I'm going to start this collection. Got me a Ken Boyer rookie card. Great stuff. And, so if you remember from a previous video, I talked about, I was going to wear this shirt, Scott's, Tops of the Year shirt. And I was like, so what's the scope of my collection going to be? And I was like, well, it's easy. Tops has been around for a long, long time, over 70 years. I think at that point it wasn't 70 years yet. But anyway, so I was like, I'll get the first Topps Cardinals card of these players. And you hear of like, post-war Hall of Fame collectors, right? Because the pre-war stuff is unknown, scarce, difficult, expensive. The list goes on, right? So I was like, I'll do the first Topps cards. That means I only got one really kind of difficult one to get. And then as that collection kind of filled out, then I really became more cognizant and understanding of like some of the pre-war stuff. And I was like, oh, you know what? A Rogers Hornsby card isn't out of reach. Great, But anyway, so you see like what I do here is I made up like little placeholder divider thingy. So, so this is the inaugural class. And you see I got Rogers Hornsby, Jesse Haynes. Some jackwagon named Bill James says that Jesse Haynes shouldn't be in. He says that Jim Bottomley shouldn't be in. He says that Chick Hafey shouldn't be in. And I'm saying that dude never played baseball. Screw that guy. They're in the Hall of Fame. Anyway, you've seen this card a couple times now. Frankie Frisch, Dizzy Dean. Joe Medwick, you've seen that a couple times. Johnny Mize, Enos Slaughter. And I actually think with Enos Slaughter, and you'll see on the next page, oh, not the next page. Yeah, the next page, with Red Shandies. Kind of want to change those cards out, get a 51 Topps. But maybe someday, like, along with that Billy Southworth, if I can find a Cardinals card of him, that'd be great. But I still got a card. Marty Marion, Stan Musial, and like I said, first Topps Cardinals card. That's his first Topps Cardinals card. I'm fortunate enough to own his rookie card, to pay for two of them. That's not happening. You got red there. And what's cool is you got Jack Buck. I know he's in a football set back in the late 80s, early 90s. But, the Kansas City Life Insurance set, 2001, the Cardinals included him. So I got a sweet Jack Buck card, favorite announcer ever. Ken card. And I've showed this before, I got my Bob Gibson rookie card. It's got a lot of character. Love the card, honest corners, all that good stuff. But like I said, it's for a binder. Got Mike Shannon, his rookie card. He turned out to be a great announcer too. Lou Brock's first Cardinals card. Whitey Herzog's first Cardinals card. I went with the team card that pictured him over the, I think it was 83 was his first solo card with the Cardinals. But, Cubs fans might like this guy. Bruce Sutter, Ozzie, my guy, Willie. And Willie was a fan vote that year. Deservedly, they said we love Willie. Will he ever be in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame? No, but who cares, because he's in ours. Tony La Russa, my favorite manager. You know, especially my formative years of like learning baseball, you know, having him as a manager, super into strategy and whatnot. If you've ever read the book, 3 Nights in August, that's a phenomenal book. It's only about 3 games and it gets into like the ins and outs, the play by play. Great, great, great baseball book. Yeah, Jimmy Ball Game. And then that concludes the, you know, the inaugural class. And one of the things that I do here is I place them by which the year they debuted with the Cardinals. So if you were kind of wondering about the order, that's what that was. And then there's like some, I'm not going to go year by year by year in this video. That'll take a long time. But, you know, you see, so 2015, put a little placeholder here. And then you're wondering, well, Red Shandies is already in your collection. But there was, you know, this is another great, great, great thing about Team Halls of Fame, right? George Kissel, long-time institution within the Cardinals organization, you know, from minor league development, scouting, coaching. You know, he's credited with being the author of The Cardinal Way, which to some fans might be an irritant to hear that. But do you think somebody like that would ever get into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame? No. You know, and there's gonna be another person like that later on in this. But like I said, you know, he's in our Hall of Fame. You know, and that's just so cool. You know, Curt Flood, should he be in the Hall of Fame? Well, he's in ours. You know, Ted Simmons. You know, yeah, Ted Simmons, Bob Forsch, only Cardinal to throw 2 no-hitters. And this is an organization that's had Steve Carlton, Bob Gibson. You know, it's great. Yeah, so you got 2016, you got Terry Moore on this sweet double play card. And that's another cool thing. Once I expanded beyond tops and the players that don't have tops cards, I was able to get, you know, some cool sets that I might not have otherwise picked up, you know. Joe Torre of Yankees fame, but, you know, he won an MVP with the Cardinals. Chris Carpenter, and great pitcher, you know, just injuries, you know. Could have been so much more. But anyway, you know, 2-time World Series champion with the Cardinals. Can't complain. 17, you know, so Pepper Martin, you've seen that card before. Again, a guy that'll never see Cooperstown, but he's in our Hall of Fame. Tim McCarver, a lot of y'all might know him more so from the TV booth with Joe Buck. But great catcher, you know, and he come to find out, you know, he ends up being like Steve Carlton's personal catcher for so long. Kind of going back into the whole steroid thing, you know, should they or shouldn't they? And I'm just saying Mark McGwire is immortalized by 2 franchises in Major League Baseball between the Cardinals and the Athletics. Do we really need, you know, these sports writers from Cooperstown, you know, to get them in Cooperstown? Me personally, no. To other people, I do understand why that's important. In 2018, Harry Bretsching, you know, important to those 40s teams. Vince Coleman, right? So there's been some great base stealers. You know, you got Lou Brock and you got Ricky Henderson, of course, you know, 1 and 2 on the all-time list. And there's other great base stealers. But did you know that Vince Coleman is the only player in Major League Baseball history with 3 consecutive 100 stolen base seasons? I mean, Ricky Henderson didn't do that. It's pretty wild. Ray Langford, loved watching him growing up. Most home runs in Busch 2. So you got 19, you know, so you got Mort Cooper right here. Jason Isringhausen. I saw his name come up when I was watching Moneyball the other day. Anyway, so he's from near St. Louis in Brighton, Illinois. And so he signs with the Cardinals in 2002. I'm still in high school working at the McDonald's. And I took his order to the drive-thru. Dumbest story you're gonna hear, right? So he ordered a McRib combo with a Dr. Pepper. I still remember that. But I opened the window to take his money, and I was like, dude, you're Jason Isringhausen. He just looked at me like I was an idiot. He goes, yeah. That was so cool. Oh man, Scott Rowland, I loved watching him play. You know, and Pujols had that bat, and Rowland was no slouch with a bat either. But I love watching him play defense. It just sucks that, you know, he ran into Heapsop Choi at first base in 05, cut that season short, and then he was just never really quite the same. Then, you know, he gets into a piston match with La Russa, and then ends up getting traded to Canada. But I used to go to games just to watch Rowland play defense. I absolutely loved it. 2020, you know, yeah, Bill White, should he be in the Hall of Fame, right? Because that's been a question. Well, he's in ours. Tommy Herr, longtime double play partner of Ozzie. John Tudor, you know, he's I think he was on one of the Dodgers late 80s World Series team. I think it was the year they lost, though. But, you know, 21, so this one right here, Keith Hernandez, right? Some would say is the greatest defensive first baseman ever. You know, he's won the most Gold Gloves at first base. We do know that, but that award didn't start till 57. But it's really kind of cool, right? So, you know, like, oh, should he be in the Hall of Fame? Well, you know, shout out to Mookie Chilson. He's been immortalized by the Cardinals and the Mets. 2 franchises, right? Whitey Herzog, going back to him, was immortalized by 2 franchises before he was elected. The Royals and the Cardinals, you know. I guess I am going to go through all the years. Yeah. 2022, Julian Javier. That's one of the few Rookie Cup cards I have in this collection. But he was on those 60s teams. Matt Holliday, more recent player. I'm sure you know of him. But, you know, he's immortalized by the Cardinals, and I don't know what the Rockies do. If there's Rockies fans in here, you might be able to correct me. You know, do they do something similar? Like, I know the Rays have a Hall of Fame. You know, Wade Boggs is in it. Fred McGriff is in it. You know, things like that. 23, Max Lanier. You know, and you're like, who is Max Lanier? Well, he was on some of the 40s teams. There was also that weird time frame in Major League Baseball. There was like this Mexican league, and he jumped ship. And that kind of didn't work out, right? As we know now, and he ended up coming back. But Jose Oquendo, here's another thing. Absolute fan favorite. You know, he was the secret weapon. There was a year where he played all 9 positions. Just super utility guy. But, you know, so he plays for the Cardinals for a good stretch. It was like 10 years or so. Later on becomes a long-time coach. I did feel like he should have been the manager over Mike Matheny when that happened, but it didn't. But anyway, so he's in the Cardinals Hall of Fame. And that's, you know, like I said, Cooperstown would never capture that. But he's been with the Cardinals for so long, done so much, been a part of very successful teams. And it's great to have somebody like that recognized within a team that appreciates him, Hall of Fame. 24, so Whitey Kurowski. You know, here's a collection where I got to learn more about a player. Great third baseman. Nothing that'll get him into Cooperstown, but I mean, it was like an information gap in my head of Cardinals history that now I'm glad I know about. And kind of going back to, like, you know, we'll never ever get into Cooperstown, but Dave Duncan, you know, for so long, you know, him and La Russa together, but it seemed like the Cardinals can bring in anybody and he'd make them a great pitcher. Jeff Weaver did nothing before he got to St. Louis, did nothing after. Woody Williams, Steve Finley was shot until he comes to the Cardinals in 02. Next thing you know, he gets revitalized, and it was just like, man, he could you know, almost do anything, you know, and it was such an important part of Cardinals history. And then you got Matt Morris. Again, what could have been if it wasn't the injuries, because when he came back to being a starting pitcher in 2001, 2002, and the first half of 2003, the guy was on fire. But then he got hurt in 03, but he was an important part of the 2004 National League Championship team. So now, here we are, 2025, right? There's nothing there. And forgive me, I am short one card, but I already have a copy of it. It's at home. I will put it in its rightful place in about a month or so. So I got this nominees page. Talk about that later. But we got Edgar Renteria. Congratulations to Edgar Renteria. I love watching him play. You know, we had that gap between him and Ozzie, but he could hit, he could field. You know, he's of World Series greatness with the Marlins and the Giants. Shout out Tops 85401. But you know, unfortunately he's known for making the last out in the 2004 World Series that broke the curse, and then subsequently signed with the Red Sox in that offseason, and that tenure didn't really work out too well for him. But he was a Gold Glover, Silver Slugger. I mean, he was doing things with a bat that we in St. Louis were not accustomed to seeing shortstops do. So I will insert him right next to there. 2025. Second inductee, Walt Jocketty. Unfortunately posthumous, right? We found out just last week that he had passed away, but a great general manager. You know, he was wheeling and dealing all the time, bringing guys in. You know, took over after the '94 season. You know, bringing in so many players like Scott Rowland, you know, Ron Gant, Gary Gaetti. Just, I mean, I could go on and on and on. But great general manager. Led the team to its first World Series championship since '82 at that time. So I'll put him on the next page. And the third player slash broadcaster, again, it seems like he's been a part of the Cardinals franchise forever. Al Raboski, the Mad Hungarian. You know, he was a dominant reliever in his time. He was an award-winning reliever in his time. You know, the Rolaids Relief Award that's been long defunct, so nobody cares. But he was a great reliever, you know, for the Cardinals, for the Royals. Ironically, he was on the '82 Braves team that lost to the Cardinals in the NLCS. But, you know, I know of him because of the broadcast booth. You know, he does, you know, it was like Fox Sports Midwest. And now it's Bally's or something. But he used to do, like, the games. And now he does, like, a lot of the post-game, pre-game stuff. And it was really cool how he found out here. He found out because Bill DeWitt III was on air with him and the host to announce who the committee had selected. And it turned out it was him. Like, that had to have been really cool, you know what I mean? But like I said, I have his rookie card at home, so I'm not gonna spend $10 or whatever it is to buy another one. I'll just put it in the binder when I get there. So one of the things I've done is when players go on the ballot, because they seem to go on the ballot multiple times until elected or something of the sort, is I have nominees. So I do get those players, so that way I already have them, and then I'm just kind of waiting for the Red Ribbon Committee. But, you know, Steve Carlton's been selected, nominated a handful of times now. I've actually voted for him. I know people say, oh, well, you know, he's a Philly. He's an important player in Cardinals history on the good side and the bad side, you know. But I think he's deserving. But anyway, George Hendrick, you know, I think he played for the Pirates for a little bit too. But, you know, what he did playing in Busch Stadium, which is, you know, to hit home runs there. I mean, you damn near needed to be on steroids to hit home runs there, as we found out. But, again, '82 World Series champion, you know. I voted for him this last ballot. Lee Smith has been on the ballot, but he hasn't reappeared. And I wonder if that's because he doesn't want to be. He's in the Cubs Hall of Fame. He's in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, deservedly now. But he's also in the Cubs Hall of Fame. And he associates himself with the Cubs. And he's explained why. But, you know, I think his most dominant years were in a Cardinals uniform. He became the all-time saves leader in a Cardinals uniform, multiple-time All-Star in a Cardinals uniform, and but it's a shame. I wish he would. I would, if he had been on the ballot, I would have voted for him, and I would vote for him every time until he gets in. But what's cool? So you notice this one's autographed. When I reported into Seattle 2023, the All-Star Fan Fest stuff was going on, and he was there. He was one of the speakers. I got to listen to him talk. I got to ask him a question, and he signed my first Cardinals Lee Smith card. Really cool. Joaquin Andujar, you know, he's been up for ballot. I have not voted for him yet. You know, he's one tough Dominican. Brian Jordan, this first time being on the ballot was this last time. You know, he's kind of known for being a two-way star. You know, he was doing the Neon Dion stuff. He's playing football, playing baseball. Really good football player, and he turned out to be a really, really good baseball player too. His time with the Cardinals, I think, was a little bit shorter. You know, because he ended up going to Atlanta after the '98 season. I'll be honest, him being on the ballot, a little bit perplexing, but he ended up going on there. Side note, David Freese. He was elected a couple years ago, and then he turned it down. But then again, he was a St. Louis kid. Maybe he didn't want the attention. I don't know. But, you know, what he publicly stated was that he's not deserving, right? Because he was with the Cardinals for a short period of time. However, it was a very remarkable time with his exploits in the 2011 playoffs. You know, he was an All-Star in 2012 as well. When compared to the other greats of the franchise in the past, so he ended up not going in. And like I said in another video, it's like I do some prospecting. So you know, it's like I wonder if Albert Pujols is going to get in the Cardinals Hall of Fame. And this one, I have his rookie card. It's graded. Do I really want to buy a second rookie card? It's not exactly cheap, right? It's not prohibitively expensive, but at the same time, to get an ungraded copy is still going to be like, what, $100 or so? So I might go with a second-year card for this binder, considering I already have his rookie card. And, you know, it's got the rookie cup, so, right there. So I think that's what I might do for Albert. Yachty, you know, he'll get in. Waino, he'll definitely get in. Will Matt Carpenter get in? I think there's actually a really good chance that he's going to get in. So whatever. Spend $50 on this card, put it in this binder. Whether he does, doesn't. I don't know. Now these two guys may end up being the first like great players that don't have a World Series attached to their time with the Cardinals. I won't get into that, but you got Paul Goldschmidt, right? Should he get in? Shouldn't he get in? I mean, he meets the requirements, but he won an MVP as a Cardinal, so I think there's a really good chance that he gets in. Nolan Arenado, my guy right there. Probably a similar discussion as Goldschmidt, but you know, he's won 2 platinum gloves in a Cardinals uniform, therefore 2 gold gloves in a Cardinals uniform. Love his defense. So that's a little bit of prospecting, and then I got some tickets from when I've been to the Cardinals Hall of Fame Museum in here just because I can. But yeah, like hopefully throughout that, going through the binder, you know, it's like why I like the Cardinals Hall of Fame so much, and then, you know, kind of going back, like your team, that, you know, if it has a Hall of Fame, you know, is it something that you track on, you've been to, or you know who's in it? And if you don't, I highly recommend that you do, and just see like who your team has taken the time to recognize, and maybe it creates a card collection, you know, that is inexpensive. Like, how much do you think that Jim Edmonds cards cost? Nothing. Same thing with Russo. Like, so many of these are so cheap, but it's fun, you know. And like I said, I've been to the Cardinals Hall of Fame Museum with this, got my picture taken, like, look at me, you know, like a nerd. I'm gonna do a video. I'm gonna take this to the museum, nerd out, and things like that. But, you know, again, it's like, yo, congratulations to Edgar Renteria, Walt Jocketty, Al Roboski on their induction. You're going to be seeing a video like this every year. But yeah, think about your team. And like I said, so many players I showed you, so many people I showed you will never, ever, ever get into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. And I don't care. I don't care what any of these cards are worth. None of them will ever get graded. And I legitimately love just like going through. I'll pick a player and try to find more information on them. You know, like Whitey Kurowski. Oh, but this collection scope has been so much fun. I'm glad I started it. And let me know what y'all think. You know, does your team have a Hall of Fame? All that good stuff. And I hope you all have a good one.